Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, moni muliwanji, namaste, jumbo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jed Lee, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We're coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so delighted and so very honored that you would join us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. Please be sure to tell all of your family and friends about the show, and please be sure to subscribe to the show on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, wherever you find your podcast. Our guest today is Anna Rose Johnson. She is here to celebrate the star that always stays. Before we invite Anna Rose into the studio, we want to let you know that this episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast is brought to you by Gabe and Andrea Olson, the authors of the Big God books. This is a fantastic series of books that are filled with true stories of real-life miracles that are happening all around us. The latest book in the series is called A Little Love, and it takes your children on a fun adventure exploring the unexpected miracles of God. The book follows a boy named G as he realizes that God does hear his prayers and is walking alongside him and his family every step of the way, even when it doesn't feel like it. Because God knows what we need before we even ask. And don't we all want to instill in our kids a belief that anything is possible? That miracles aren't just found in the Bible, they're still happening today to everyday, ordinary people. You can pick up A Little Love today at thebiggodbooks.com. And when you do, you get exclusive bonus material that was thoughtfully designed just for you to help you turn difficult conversations about God into entertaining, faith-growing family moments. Get your copy today, thebiggodbooks.com. That's where you can find A Little Love by Gabe and Andrea Olson. This episode of the podcast is also brought to you by the Lookbook Scavenger Hunt series. They're on a mission to make life and learning fun for the entire family. This is a fantastic series written by our friend Barbara Tivitz. Barbara believes that scavenger hunts are a wonderful way to increase retention and enhance problem-solving skills. Looking for ways to connect with your children? Slow down and look at the ordinary things that are around you in a brand new way. The Lookbook Scavenger Hunt is an open-ended activity that will spark conversations with your kids. Your kids can take the lead in learning as they hunt for objects hidden in plain sight. Share this experience together and build connections that will last a lifetime. The latest book in the Hometown series brings attention to the importance of caring for our natural world and can be completed anywhere. You are going to love this series. It's the Lookbook Scavenger Hunt series by Barbara Tivitz. We also want to let you know that we have a brand new Reading with Your Kids certified great read. Why Should I Climb This Tree? By Ryan Hogan and illustrated by Susanna Bramer. This book is not only a reminder for kids and parents to take the time to appreciate the beauty and wonder of nature that surrounds us, it's also a metaphor for life, encouraging us all to step outside of our comfort zones in order to become the person we are meant to be. What do you see when you look at a tree? A beautiful part of the landscape? A source of shade? A reminder that come fall, you're going to have a lot of raking to do? Do you ever look at a tree and see an adventure? A world unto itself, filled with choices, creatures, colors, and sounds? A perch that will give you a new perspective on your surroundings, on your life. Why Should I Climb This Tree? Reminds us that a tree is a gateway into nature, a place we can escape to when we need to take a break from screens and devices, a place where we can just be. Ryan Hogan's words inspires readers to be adventurous. Susanna Bramer's illustrations remind us all of nature's beauty that surrounds us. This is a simply wonderful book that families can read over and over and over. Fantastic. We love it. Why Should I Climb This Tree? Our latest Reading with Your Kids certified great read. Join us right now from the beautiful state of Wisconsin. Our guest is here today to celebrate her debut middle grade novel. It's called The Star Always Stays. Please welcome to the show, Anna Rose Johnson. Hey, Anna Rose, how are you?
Very well, thanks.
I'm excited.
I'm glad to be here.
I'm glad that you're here, too. Tell us all about The Star That Always Stays, please.
Yes. Well, it's a historical middle grade novel that was inspired by the childhood of my great-grandmother. And I first got the idea for the book when I was doing some genealogical research about my great-grandmother, and I realized that her early teen years could make a really interesting middle grade book. So I started working on it, and so it's kind of her story. And it's basically what happens when her parents divorce and her mother remarries, and they move to a new town, new home, and Norvia, the main character, goes to high school, and so it's about her adjusting to her new life.
And being a child of divorce is difficult today. It was even more difficult back in your grandmother's time. I mean, I know,
yes.
You know, when I was growing up, there were two kids in my class, the class that was with me all through elementary school. There were two kids whose parents had divorced. So it was 2 out of maybe 75. That, obviously, that number now is probably closer to 50% of the kids in a given class, maybe from divorce. But what kind of things did your grandmother or Norvia go through being a child from a divorced family?
Mm-hmm. Yes. For that aspect of the story, which I always thought would be interesting because of, the time period and divorce not being as common. So I did research, and tried to, think what that would have been like, in 1914. I don't know, the specifics of, how that played out in her real life. That wasn't something that I was able to know about, but I did my best to try and represent that as well as I could.
Yeah. And there's another challenge for Norvia in your story that's maybe even a bigger part of her life.
Yes. Well, she is also of Ojibwe descent, and at that time, there are prejudices regarding that as well. So that's something that her mother tells her to try and keep quiet, especially now that they're, living this new life with a new step family. So yeah, that's very difficult for her in the story. Because she, is so connected to, her grandparents and their stories and, the legacy of their ancestors. And so throughout the story, she is able to try and come to terms with that. The fact that, it is, a lot different now in their new life. But she's able to kind of, reclaim that. And, she realizes that, it's totally okay to be proud of that heritage.
Mm-hmm. I think that is something that could really spark some very interesting conversations within a family. We always encourage families to continue to read with their kids after they become independent readers. And I think books like The Star That Always Stays would be a wonderful book to read together or to co-read with your middle grade kids, because I think there's so much to talk about just having a conversation about needing to hide who you are. You're a lot closer to Norvia's age. What does that kind of bring up in your mind, and what do you think that would have been like?
Yes, it is very it's very fascinating to think about, and sad to think about. That probably was something that she went through to some extent, and I think that it is something that that really sparks interesting conversations, and is something that would that could be a good conversation starter, reading the book with middle grade age kids. And yeah, I think absolutely that would have been something that in her family at that time, that would have been really difficult. And so that's what I tried to show in the book, that even though there were these challenges, with the prejudice that she and her family were going through, that despite that, they were able to end up really finding kind of a happy ending, in their new home and new town. So yes, I was glad to be able to show that, and then also show everything, working out for the best.
Yeah, that's really cool. When you're talking about the book, you have such a radiant smile. It is obvious that you're incredibly proud of this work. Did you always dream of being an author for children?
Yes, it was always something that I wanted to do. I think probably not specifically for children. When I was a child, I just knew that I always wanted to be a writer. But when I would say that when I was about middle grade age, then I thought how cool it would be to be able to write middle grade books, being the same age as my readers. I always thought that was such a cool idea. But obviously my first book didn't come out until this year. But yes, it's just always something that I have loved doing, always wanted to be an author. And I think that helped, if you know from an early age, exactly what you want to do, then, it helps to be able to just stay on pursuing that. Yes, I love writing for children.
Yeah. We've heard a lot of authors say that, I've always wanted to write, always loved writing. What is it about writing that you love so much?
Yeah, it's so many things. I think a big part is because I'm such a reader, and I think that growing up I always wanted to write stories that were similar to the books that I enjoyed, and that's still a big driving force for me. I get very inspired when I read books that I think are just so good, and I just like the act of writing, the prose. I love finding just the perfect word, the mix of writing more poetic style prose mixed in with very accurate dialogue. I like the kind of balances that you get in writing, and just being able to, have a whole, story world, that you get to think about all the time.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Is there a type of this was historical fiction? Is this the area that you see yourself staying in, or do you perhaps think maybe we'll do fantasy or science fiction or a little steampunk, or maybe I want to write a picture book or write something for adults?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I think that I've definitely thought about writing other, genres and age groups, and certainly I've dabbled in different things, but historical fiction for middle grade readers is definitely my sweet spot, and I definitely want to do that for quite a while at least.
Yeah. When you're writing historical fiction, is part of the attraction that you imagine yourself living in that time and you're thinking, wow, I'd really love to live in that time? Or are you more like me when I watch a series like Deadwood and I think to myself, wow, I am really glad I don't have to live back then and wear the same clothes for a month?
Yes, I think that when you write historical fiction, there's definitely some of both. Growing up, I always was so fascinated by the Edwardian era in the 1910s. I just always thought that would be such a fun era to live in. You know, I love the fashions of it. So that's definitely a very fun part of writing historicals. But yeah, then there's other aspects, you know, where even just, you know, day-to-day life, you know, was harder, just even in terms of, you couldn't just, you know, go buy something online back then. Life is so much easier in some ways now. So yeah, I can see both.
Yeah. What are we going to see more of Norvia in the future? Will we be following her story as she grows?
Well, I definitely hope so. It's something that I really want to do. I don't know yet exactly what I will end up writing or working on, but that is my hope for sure.
Yeah. I'm thrilled that you were inspired by your grandmother. Was there something as you were doing your research that really surprised you about your grandmother, about the members of your family?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there were definitely surprises along the way, because, you know, starting out doing the genealogy of you know, her parents, her siblings, you know, I was trying to, you know, piece together different things and, you know, going through records and newspaper articles and just trying to, you know, to put together, you know, what their life would have been like. And so then I you know, I'm starting to write, and I went through several drafts of the book before I started pursuing publication. And so it was interesting then later when I would be doing research, then I would realize that sometimes what I had come up with myself actually would end up being pretty close to what the reality was. And so those were fun little surprises. That's, you know, different things that I had invented were really closer to what was actually going on than I might have thought.
Wow. So you were kind of prescient in that. Yeah.
It was pretty cool. I think that it's very fun to have kind of your guesses validated.
Yeah. Any other members of your family that you discovered that you think, oh, this person has to find their way into a story?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what's really fun about genealogy, is that, you know, when I'm researching so many different branches of the family, and even just different branches of Norvia's extended family, and there are just stories everywhere. You know, you could, you know, anyone that I research, you know, my writer brain always then starts formulating, you know, trying to figure out, you know, what their story would be if I wrote a book about them. So yeah, it's pretty much always on my mind when I do that kind of research.
Yeah, that's very, very cool. I know people are going to want to know where they can go to find out more about The Star That Always Stays, and also more about you. But before you tell me, I'm really curious about your title, The Star That Always Stays. Tell us a little bit about the inspiration for your title.
Yes, it was not the first title that I considered. I considered several titles before I chose this one. And the reason that I picked The Star That Always Stays is because it it kind of has three different meanings. And its meaning, literally, the North Star, because that's, discussed in the book. And it also is, the North Star is the name of Norvia's new home. That's the name that she gives it, because she wants it to be this, new kind of a sanctuary for her in this difficult time. And then the third meaning, is referring to, Norvia's faith that she comes to, rely on, toward the end of the story. So I wanted it to have that, more than one meaning. So it's both literal and metaphorical title.
Awesome. I'm so glad. As soon as I asked you that question, I was afraid you were going to say, well, it wasn't my idea. The editor came up with it, and I was stuck with it.
Well, yeah, I mean, sometimes titles, you need help with them, but
that happens sometimes.
But this one was fun to come up with.
Yeah. So tell us, Anna Rose, where can we go to find out more about you and find out more about the book?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, you could go to my website, which is just AnnaRoseJohnson.com. You can find out more about the book on my publisher's website, holidayhouse.com. There's a page for the book there, and that has links where you can check out the book.
Wonderful. We've had a really fun time speaking to the author of The Star That Always Stays, a debut middle grade novel from our guest, Anna Rose Johnson. Hey, Anna Rose, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Please be sure to join us for the next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be Dave Finnegan. He'll be here to celebrate the Green Actioneers Family Action Guide. It's a really, really fun episode. Dave is a fascinating guy. You don't want to miss it. That's the next episode of the podcast. Hey, if you are a fascinating author of a fantastic children's book, we would love to help you celebrate that book to the world. There's so many ways we can help you let the world know all about your book. Please go to readingwithyourkids.com and click on the Authors Click Here button at the top of the page. You can learn how you can be a guest here on the podcast. And in a long-form conversation, tell the world about your book, about your inspiration, about your brand. It's fun, it's easy, and it doesn't cost a thing. Oh, you heard me let you know at the beginning of the show that Ryan Hogan's book, Why Should I Climb This Tree, is our latest Reading with Your Kids certified great read. If you go to readingwithyourkids.com, click on that Authors Click Here button at the top of the page, you can learn how you can submit your book to our certified great read panel. You can also learn how you can take part in our monthly promotion program. We can celebrate your book through commercials here in the podcast, messages to our over 100,000 social media followers, and have your book displayed on our nationwide network of digital pedestrian billboards. Learn all about that and more by going to readingwithyourkids.com and clicking on the Authors Click Here button at the top of the page. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, we want to start by thanking our guest, Anna Rose Johnson. Please be sure to check out The Star That Always Stays. Also want to thank Barbara Tibbetts. Be sure to check out the Lookbook Scavenger Hunt series. It is a fantastic series of books. Talk about interactive fun. You're going to love it. We also want to thank Gabe and Andrea Olson. They're the authors of the Big God books. You can go to biggodbooks.com to find out about their latest. It's called A Little Love. I want to thank my team, Fatima Khan, Rory Brady, Mirabella Q, Jordan Saley, Skylar Strauss. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. I want to thank both Augie and Calvin for keeping you safe here in the studio today. But most of all, I want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.